Great to have you along for the ride. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Glad to have this man back. District 5 Republican, great state of Arizona. It is Representative Andy Biggs. Andy, how are you? Good to see you.
Great, Joe. It's good to be with you, too.
It's always a pleasure. I've got to get into the fireworks that happened in some committee today. You've got this guy that was handed the, I guess, acting leader of the Secret Service after the previous woman was sort of pushed out. She resigned after the assassination attempt in July of President Trump. Since then, there's been another attempt. Iran wants to take out President Trump. And the bottom line is, and you've been saying this forever, the Secret Service should protect the protectee. Do you have any insight into this thing between this guy and Fallon, this yelling back and forth? I think that Representative Fallon from my state of Texas was just trying to get some answers, no?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Look, to me, I wasn't there, but I did happen to see it. I watched it, and this is the acting director, Rowe. And acting director Rowe didn't want to answer the question because Fallon was asking him a simple question. Were you the agent in charge? And because there was a 9/11 event where you got Biden, you got Trump, you got all these, you got Schumer, you've got a bunch of elected officials there.
Yeah.
And you can't really see any agents. And Fallon's trying to get it. Well, where are the agents? How is this working? And were you the agent in charge? And why don't I see you at all? And Rowe didn't want to answer that question. So he went ballistic and claimed that Fallon was trying to make politics out of the 9/11 memorial service and everything. It was just absolutely, utterly inane.
It was.
And embarrassing for Mr. Rowe because it indicated that he either wasn't listening or he didn't want to answer that question.
Right. I mean, Andy, he was screaming about, why are you politicizing 9/11? 3,000 people died. We all know what happened on 9/11. The question was a simple one. You've got dignitaries there that, God forbid, some bad guy wanted to take them out. We don't see anybody protecting them. It's not a very difficult, nor is it a deep question. It should be a simple, we were here, I was on site, I was the lead. But why make it about politics? And I guess, like you were saying, it's a diversion because he had no real answer, did he?
But that's right. He didn't have a real answer. But the only person that was in that conversation making it 9/11 into a political event or distraction was the acting director, Rowe.
Right.
Because he's the one who brought it up as a political decoy instead of just saying, look, we had whatever, this is what we did, this is what we didn't do, this is what we should have done, this is what he didn't want to answer those questions.
It is U.S. Representative Andy Biggs, District 5 Republican, great state of Arizona. I've never in my life, and I follow politics since I was 10, I've never thought to myself, I wonder who the director of the Secret Service is. I never ever thought about it. I knew it used to be Treasury controlled them. Now it's DHS. But I never thought, who's the director of the Secret Service? Andy, I get more people out and about everywhere and calling the show and everything else saying, who do you think should be the FBI or the Secret Service director? And they talk about Bongino, who I think is better in his role that he does now. But people are now concerned about this because of the assassination attempts on former president, soon to be president again, Donald Trump. Does it matter who the name is, who the person is, or does it matter that they can do the job very well?
Well, I don't care who it is. It could be Joe Blow, Joe the rag man. I don't care if they do the job. And part of the problem, Joe, is that Secret Service is kind of split in their focus. And so that's why I introduced this piece of legislation called the Secret Service Protection Act. And what we're trying to do is basically say, look, that's all we want Secret Service to do. We want them to focus on protecting the protectees. And then, the FBI should be doing all this counterfeit and fraud work that the Secret Service gets involved in. Stop it. Let's get the people protected. Because think about it. What happens is you got almost half of their agencies doing this fraud stuff. The other half's doing protective stuff. They never have enough people on the protective duties. So then they go to Homeland Security investigations and they say, hey, we got to have 250 people this for the next 3 weeks. And so those 250 people get called out of their homes. They get video training, for Pete's sakes, on how to protect people as opposed to doing that full time. And so, of course, you're going to have holes and gaps, and it needs to stop.
Well, I would think that it would have stopped once they left Treasury. Why would the Secret Service that isn't under Treasury's purview anymore, why would they be doing any of this? Treasury should worry about whether it's counterfeit money or this other stuff that's going on. With the incoming FBI director, I hope that Kash Patel gets confirmed quickly. With him coming in, would you then in the House work with him and say, hey, why don't you guys take these responsibilities? This would make more sense for you to have it?
Yeah, that's what my bill does. It gives it to FBI. And the other thing is when you give it to FBI, it does something called crowding out. It's going to crowd out this overemphasis on domestic terrorism that the FBI has.
Right.
Right. So that's part of the deal. And it will cause FBI to get realigned, Secret Service to get realigned. And that's what all these agencies, federal police agencies, all need to be realigned.
Biggs.house.gov, and Biggs has 2 G's. It's Andy Biggs. Let's talk about that a little bit further. With the FBI, with the incoming FBI, that'll be very different under whoever's leadership. And again, I hope it's Kash. The promise is they're going to streamline it. And they're going to stop doing the domestic terrorism angle that you just brought up. In other words, they're not going to go to school board meetings anymore and take down license plates. They're not going to go and arrest the guy holding a sign saying, I'm pro-life, in front of the abortion clinic. They're not going to go and arrest the guy who prayed outside of an abortion clinic. Andy, it's time for that to stop, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of weaponization needs to go away. The first thing when President Trump gets in is I hope that he pardons the FACE Act prisoners and the vast majority of J6ers. And I'm a big supporter of Kash, like you. I think Kash will clean it up. Kash knows this. I've heard him say before, hey, you're police officers, you're cops. Go be cops.
Yeah.
And let's stop this domestic terrorism stuff that really much of it is not domestic terrorism at all. It's just people exercising fundamental rights. So that's incumbent on Congress to actually eliminate the FACE Act, which is if you're praying outside an abortion clinic, good grief, they want to arrest you. And we've got people that are in prison now who were merely praying in front of an abortion clinic.
It doesn't make any sense. It does go against their constitutional rights, but you're right. It's not really about domestic terrorism. It's about going after those who are conservative and that believe in the constitutional rights that are protected. We're given by the higher power and protected against government override, and they're overriding it left and right. So can he come in and do that without congressional help? Does he have to work with the Congress to make it? Like, could Kash show up and say, I'm now in charge. We're not doing that anymore?
Yeah, he can, because he can set the direction. And the direction would be to say, look, we're going to emphasize, in this instance, we're going to go after counterfeit coin operations, whatever they are. He can say that's what we're doing. He can disband units or he can transfer people out of the counterterrorism unit, for instance. He can do all and I don't mean counterterrorism, I mean domestic terrorism.
Right.
He can actually silo people out of those areas and get them in different areas that would be more effective to prevent crime and prosecute crime.
But would it take legislation, though? Let's say Kash does the job for 4 years, something else happens, somebody else gets in there and does something different. I don't want them to be able to change the policy unilaterally. I want there to be legislation that says this is the role of the FBI. Do you need to take those steps? With that whole Chevron deference ruling, you guys in Congress now have the power back that you should have had the entire time. And these people that are not elected don't have the opportunity to change law because they feel like it. So is it now time for Congress to say, this is the role of the FBI, don't go outside those boundaries that we've set through law?
Yeah, absolutely. I call it codification. So you're going to actually encode this into our statutes and basically define this stuff. And that's we got to do that. And that's the same thing. Like a good example would be if the president issues an executive order on a remain in Mexico policy, for instance. Well, Congress should then come in and say that is our policy. That is what the law is. And DHS is required through CBP and ICE, USCIS, whatever agency we determine, they have to follow the remain in Mexico policy.
And that's sort of what happened when Trump left office. 91 or 94 executive actions by Biden undid everything that he did policy-wise. Had it been codified in law, he couldn't have done that, right?
That's correct. Let's get this straight, though. I mean, he did. You could have if we had codified some of that. Biden didn't care. Remember, because he's doing like the CHNV program, which is Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela program.
Right.
he's doing CBP1. Those both violate the law with regard to parole. And he didn't care. Biden administration didn't care. And that's, again, Congress's fault, because Congress didn't say, all right, you're not going to follow the law we put in place. That means we're going to defund you over here. We're not going to give you some money for whatever it is you want until you reinstitute the law, which means no categorized or class parole. It's because parole is meant to be for one person at a time.
Right. Well, that didn't happen. So does the Congress now have the backbone it needs to do that going forward? You're not going to need that with Trump because he's going to follow the law. But after that, and throughout history, from now on, throughout the future, I should say, we need to make sure that their hands are tied. Can you tie them?
Congress can. The big question for me, Joe, is this. Maybe I'm too cynical. I'm optimistic because we have a mandate. We have President Trump. We have the House, a very slight majority in the House, slight majority in the Senate. But you know what? If everybody pulled together, we could do some really amazing things. And I just hope that the American public's willing to come in and shame their members of Congress who don't want to reduce spending, don't want to reduce regulation, don't want to codify good policy that deals with the border that President Trump wants to enact.
Yeah.
We need the public in a way that perhaps we've never needed before.
I think the public's waking up. It's Andy Biggs, U.S. Representative, District 5 Republican, great state of Arizona. Let's talk about your state and the border for a second. Katie Hobbs says she's not going to help out ICE or Border Patrol or DHS. Others are saying that. Pritzker's saying that in Illinois. You've got mayors saying that in Denver. You've got Gavin Newsom saying that. Andy, they don't have to help necessarily, but they can inhibit. So, there's a fine line there, isn't there? They could be in big trouble if they aid and abet, can't they?
Yeah, so are you going to aid and abet? So if you have somebody is a criminal with an ICE hold on it, and you give instructions to not turn them over to ICE, you are aiding and abetting, number one, and you're also obstructing justice, both criminal offenses and both prosecutable. So, look, I've talked with New Borders, Tom Homan, great guy. I think he's going to do a good job on this thing. And the question will be, is our U.S. Attorney, Pam Bondi, is she going to instruct her new U.S. attorneys to prosecute these people? And I hope so. Look, we got in Arizona, we got Tucson, which claims it's a sanctuary city, and its mayor, Regina Romero, has said they're not going to help. They're going to stand in the way every way they can. Well, you know what? If that's the case, and you're doing that, then you should be arrested and prosecuted.
I could not agree more.
Same thing goes on with Governor Hobbs of Arizona.
Well, why would Arizona even take this stance publicly? And here's why I ask. Here in Texas, where I am, Governor Abbott has sent down the DPS. He sent down the National Guard. He has worked hand in foot with the Border Patrol, those who want to actually help stop the problem. And Texas has become more secure. It's still not as secure as it will be on January 20th, but it's more secure. Why would Arizona is getting all the byproduct? All the illegals are now going to Arizona. You guys are the hotbed. You're ground zero now for illegal immigration. Why would somebody elected by the people, barely, Katie Hobbs, why would she not say, listen, I'm going to protect the people of Arizona? What does she gain by turning a blind eye or even saying I'm not going to help?
I don't know that she gains anything. I think she's just a relentless partisan, and a total leftist, and they want an open border. And that's the bottom line. They don't like the sovereignty of this nation. They want a fundamental remake of this nation. And I think there was a great repudiation of those type policies, and even in Arizona, where President Trump won by right about the margin I think some of us thought he would, which is about 3.5, 4 points.
Right.
But that was something that the left did not count on in Arizona.
I agree with you. It's Andy Biggs. Let's get to Hunter Biden's pardon. Joe Biden said for a long time, Jill Biden said for a long time, KJP said for a long time, not going to pardon him, not pardoning Hunter Biden. He does it. It's a blanket unconditional pardon like we've never seen before. Richard Nixon got a similar thing, but not for this length of time. It covers 11 years, Andy. Is this legal that he did that? And is there any hell to pay for lying to the American people for a year?
Well, so the Constitution gives pretty broad power for pardons and clemency to the President of the United States. So that's going to be hard stepping in. But it was no surprise to me, Joe, that he was going to give him this pardon. I always believed he would.
Right.
But 11 years is the longest in United States history, to my knowledge. And then the scope, which you described it accurately, is really broad. It isn't just, usually a pardon is going to go to a specific instance and anything that arises out of that specific instance. But here, this is really incredibly broad because it includes anything that may be construed as being a criminal activity in that 11-year period. Amazing. So the remedy, of course, is that we call in Hunter Biden. You can't just because someone gets a pardon doesn't mean the investigation's over. And we continue to investigate the Biden family. I think they were really hopelessly corrupt. And I think that's something that we need to look at. And if Hunter Biden comes in post date of pardon, which is December 1, 2024, and he were to be asked questions and he either obstructed justice, refused to answer because he doesn't have the Fifth Amendment anymore, or he lied, or he lies to us, he's not protected anymore, and he could be prosecuted for perjury, contempt of Congress, those types of things.
It is Andy Biggs. I think that Joe Biden thought he was pardoning himself by going back to 2014. 2014 is when the Burisma stuff happened. 2014 is when, you just had Jamie Comer and his committee say $23 or $27 million changed hands. I think Biden thinks he pardoned himself, but he didn't. So do you think before January 20th he pardons himself, Jill, Ashley, James Biden, Karen Biden? Is he going to have to pardon everybody? And if he does that, again, it's broad. I think it's Article 2, Section 2. You can do whatever you want as the president, but this thing stinks, doesn't it?
It reeks. It's just stinky, and it looks like banana republics. It looks like every tin-horn dictatorship you have. But I've been predicting for a long time that Joe Biden is going to actually pardon more than just Hunter. I think he's going to pardon like Jim Biden, his brother, and some of the others that you mentioned, whether it's Ashley, whether it's Jill. But don't be surprised if he kind of lets that ripple out a little bit, because the last thing he wants is people like Devin Archer, who's sitting in prison, to get really torqued off and say, okay, now I'm willing to come clean on everything, because you didn't pardon me. So don't be surprised if this doesn't ripple out even beyond that a little bit.
They are so dirty. It's Andy Biggs, District 5 Republican, the great state of Arizona. I appreciate the time and the access, Andy. Great job, as always, for all of America and for your state. Let's talk again very soon, my friend.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, Joe.
Appreciate you. All right. We're back after this. Stay right here.